The immediate bishop b7. I'm wondering if maybe this is the plan here.
And Maurice mentioned he did play a4.
Yeah, but a4 is a very logical way to try to immediately refute.
But it's a novelty we're hearing.
Well,
with
with only one game played after b5, it's it's not.
It must have been knight d5 or something played.
But you must assume that Magnus looked at a4.
Of course, yeah.
If you're seeing b5, if he's playing b5 and he said, okay, I know it's a rare move, so I like it. It's a move, of course, that belongs in the Najdorf. Nobody's going to really know it and have studied it very well. So what happens if I play b5? Certainly a4 is going to be one of those moves that you look at very quickly, not just whatever move was played before. And so now he's taken on a4, and that has certainly fractured his pawn structure and brought a rook. I think it's rook takes a4 that was played, brought a rook into the game, and it looks like Magnus is still in his home prep.
And Peter, you almost toppled the table when you saw b takes a4. That came as a shock to you.
Yeah, it's a very, very striking decision because you are sort of strategically lost now for a Najdorf player, and I used to count myself as a Najdorf player. If white manages to settle and, let's say, gets some kind of bishop c4, queen e2 set up, the pawn on a6 is basically a goner, and the d5 square is incredibly weak. So this is based on some very, very specific immediate counterplay. And bishop d7 is the first hint of where this is going. You want to drive the rook away from the fourth rank. And I'm slightly surprised at how quickly Wesley played rook a1, because I would have at least considered playing something like rook b4, rook c4. But rook a1 is logical. And now Magnus goes knight c6. And
now the ancients gave a5, I should point out, very quickly pushing this pawn forward down the board to disrupt the security of the knight on b3. Magnus playing knight c6. Ancients don't like it that much because of the immediate knight to d5 that could come with the threat of bishop to b6 on the board.
And what about taking the pawn? What's happening?
Yeah, there's also the immediate capture on a6, let's say, with the rook. But I think this is what knight c6 is specifically aimed against. I think we take back, we go knight b4, then we go bishop c6 against more or less any move of the bishop. Let's say bishop, I don't know, c4. We also have queen c7, so let's go all the way back. We play bishop c6 here, and we're kind of hoping for some position like this, where, you know, this is a dream compensation for any Najdorf player. It would be quite good even if white already castled, but because white hasn't castled yet, there's also the bishop h4 check ideas, which will become extremely awkward.
So even if I take on d5, you could actually just
I could interpose, but even this position is like you take black here in a second, because let's say bishop f2, we stop bishop h4 check, I just castle, I put the knight on f4 next move.
Beautiful position.
Yeah, white is fighting for survival here. So I don't think rook a6 is very likely because of just how much play it gives black.
Magnus is not giving up a pawn in the opening for no reason. That's out of the question.
But Maurice mentioned this other idea, knight d5, because we still have this critical. Knight e4, bishop b6 idea on tap.
Yeah, and the justification for it is that after knight d5, e d5, knight b4, the knight actually gets, oops, not c4, of course, that's me misclicking. I tend to misclick a lot these days.
Better to misclick than to blunder.
No.
c3 would trap the knight, of course, and win the game easily. But Magnus must have something against this line as well. There's no way he's walking into the power of a knight d5, which is looking to solidify white's advantage on that side, and also that pawn on a6. Sooner or later will be captured if you're not careful, as it's hanging. I
wonder what the idea is.
With the b4 square covered right now.
Yeah, like none of the things I'm currently looking at feel very attractive. You could castle, which kind of takes some sting of the bishop b6 idea, but then even the very simple knight f6, bishop f6, and queen d6 appears to be quite strong. Although maybe you can continue playing this position. Maybe you go bishop e7 and then bishop e6 or something.
So you're saying a bishop e6?
And knight d5 has been played, and Magnus, I think, will reply very quickly, because knight d5, as Maurice mentioned, knight d5 is the computer's main choice, and as such, it will have been checked by Team Magnus.
And why does castles take away the threat of bishop b6?
Well, knight c7 will no longer be a check.
So you'll just play queen b8 or something.
Queen somewhere, yeah. And I don't at least lose on the spot to knight c7. Yeah.
So one thing we've noticed recently, and Magnus has done this, which was for him a little bit odd, is go into the main theoretical lines and come up with ideas constantly in these main lines that are sort of the sharpest ways to play. And he's been doing that the last couple of years especially after his match against Fabi. That has proven to be very successful for him. Instead of avoiding the debates, he used to say, I don't want to be in the preparation, it's too much, it's too computer-esque. Well, his computer now is chock full of novelties, and this undoubtedly looks like one of them, but is he struggling to remember what he should do here as the move knight d5, as we mentioned, is so natural that it would have been something that his team looked at, and he's stopping to think about what to do when it's really a critical position to look at.
It's slightly curious that the move has not been instantly played in reply to knight d5, because knight d5 does appear to be extremely logical here, the way the pieces are set up. And
he's spending quite a bit of time thinking on this. And you mentioned, for example, castles and the pawn sacrifice after knight f6, which, by the way, the engine gives us very good compensation. In fact, better for black if you take this pawn on d6. So we could take a look at this line.
Yeah, there's also other stuff white can play, but show us.
Yes, after knight d5 castles, the move knight takes on f6, bishop takes on f6, queen takes on d6, and the move bishop e7, surprisingly, preparing to just eject the queen, and then even a move like queen to c7, but bishop e6 also looking quite good. Although I got to tell you, the more we look at this, the more it looks like where is the exact compensation in this position, because you did take the pawn, and although your pieces are well placed, you see the bishops, knights, everybody's well placed to attack. Knight b4 could come in and weaken the security of this piece as well. But still, it looks as though white is, for the moment, up a pawn. So we gotta wonder what Magnus has in mind, because he's stopping to think.
Certainly, yeah.
And he still hasn't moved in a position that looks like it was extremely natural to appear on the board.
Yeah, I will mention that if we go back to our analysis board for a second, that after castles, there are other options available to white as well. For instance, I'm somewhat interested in the move knight b6, which appears to semi-force rook b8.
Right, because of rook.
Yeah, and then just something like this, for instance, which should take some of the sting out of the. Although no, knight b4 I have rook a7 there. But maybe black is just doing fine here. It's not immediately clear how good this is for white.
Because we're always going to have that counterplay against the e4 and c2 pawns, right?
Rook b7, also queen c6.
Because queen b8, I have bishop c7.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Why are we allowing this? It doesn't seem to be. Although, as you can see on the bar to the left of the board, bishop b7.
I don't know why though, because it looks like.
I think this is the point. After queen b7, once again, all the pieces get removed from the long diagonal. And,
okay.
And material starts to drop.
That's interesting though, because it shows us some of the issues in the position, right? White always has these weaknesses on c2 and e4.
Wesley's not touching that pawn, and I don't think Wesley's going to go any kind of extreme tactical measures, wild play. That is something he is famous for, is playing very solidly, playing the most stable line, keeping the edges, the advantages he has in the position. I would be stunned if he didn't play bishop g2 and just continue playing chess.
I was about to say.
He might glance at the pawn for a moment, but he's going to smell a rat and say, no way I'm giving Magnus Carlsen any kind of real counterplay. Hard to imagine he'd take on f6 and grab the pawn.
Yeah, and but if white is actually forced to sort of abandon the immediate idea of winning the pawn on a6 and in general develops the bishop to g2 and not c4, which I think with this very nice square on d5 being available to white, this is where you want the bishop to go. I think I would have to scale back my statement of this being strategically winning for white, because white does have structural problems on the king side. White can play something like bishop e6 and hope at some point, and particularly if the bishop on a7 survives and you ever get to play bishop g5, you will start liking your position a great deal more. So I think Wesley has to very seriously consider going for after some material here. I just don't know in what fashion.
You think his position is that critical that he's in that kind of crisis moment now?
I think it's an incredibly critical position. I think bishop g, like deciding I'm playing against a well-prepared opponent who cooked up something quite striking, and I don't want to test him in the most principled replies, and then just going bishop g2 is a thing that Wesley is generally quite likely to do. The kind of a player he is extremely strong practically. He takes very, very good practical decisions in general, and spending like 10 minutes here trying to calculate sharp variations to quote-unquote the end, and probably not succeeding is maybe not best practice.
So you think he's not going to spend 10 minutes? No, he already has spent 3.5.
Yeah,
so he's obviously in agreement with you that it's a critical position.
Yeah, but I think this position justifies sinking some time into it.
And somebody who...
To get rid of that d7 bishop, but he realized that after knight d7, queen d7, you can't really take on a6 because it gives black just too much free reign. And he
Knight b4, right?
He played bishop g2 here. Magnus played a5, securing that pawn on a better square. You obviously don't want to be taking on a5 because you lose the b2 pawn. Wesley castled. And for instance, there is now this very typical Najdorf idea of playing bishop d8, bishop b6, which I don't know if it's fast enough, but it's definitely sound as positional ideas go. This is a very sound positional idea for black.
Why? Just because you get rid of that?
Yeah, you want to trade the bishop on e7 for the bishop on e3 and leave white with this rather stupid piece on g2. And bishop d8 has been played by Magnus.
And developments in other...
Let's go back to the Carlsen-So game, because I'm really fascinated by that. Carlsen, rather, as you point out, the last move by Magnus, bishop d8, very thematic, trying to get rid of that dark squared bishop, leaving white with a terrible bishop on g2. So what does Wesley do about it?
Well, you want to try to put as much pressure on the a5 and d6 pawns as possible. So some kind of combination of queen d2, rook fd1 appears to be very natural, but Wesley goes queen f3. This is a whoa, and back, and back. He will play a queen move though, because Wesley, we've all seen that. You can't really not play. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So wait,
if you break it, you buy it. So he touched his piece. He's got to move it somewhere.
And he has played queen f3, and the point of that, of course, is he is trying to sort of artificially stop bishop b6 by creating this tactic. The queen has no other business being on f3, so that's the only explanation for this move. Otherwise, it would go to d2.
And do you think he second-guessed himself? Is there any sense in knight g4 here? No, you could just take on g7.
I'm not sure about that. I think maybe he spotted that this tactic exists, but I think he'd be extremely happy about a4, rook a4, knight d4, and let's say rook takes d4, and maybe even knight and knight to f5 or bishop
that
takes.
looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this improves white's position greatly, at least optically, and also I think objectively. So I don't think Magnus will spend more than 3 seconds on a5, a4 in this position.
And instead he played knight to b4 quite quickly.
Knight b4 quickly, and the queen drops back to e2 because you need to safeguard the pawn on c2, and also importantly, if you do it by playing rook fc1, a very typical tactic of knight c2 and rook b3 exists, which gives black an immediate edge. And it seems like white lost the tempo here by playing queen f3, queen e2, but what he has done by this loss of tempo is he sort of stopped bishop b6, because now we can take with the knight. A move that is now a lot stronger than before because the b file is closed and we're not losing the b2 pawn.
Right, wow, great nuance there. So Magnus thinking now, probably not going to play bishop b6
no, of course
because of
not,
that line.
It also gives black this option, which looks quite decent. You can play a4, forcing the knight to go to c1, which is maybe not the best square on the board. And now we can play bishop b6.
All right, so bishop b6 in this position. Now, how do we unravel
white can win a pawn?
here?
White can win a pawn here by playing c3 and then making an extremely ugly move f takes
I see,
c3.
because you're saying that if we take with the queen, you have the knight a6 square again.
It's very important not to allow knight a6. Oh,
well,
sorry,
knight c2.
Also knight c2.
Knight
I was looking at knight a6, but also knight c2 just wins on the spot. But after f3, the only square available to the knight is c6. We take on a4, and we don't actually lose material to knight. Oops, not rook e1, of course. Misclicks are going to be a problem. There is queen g1 protecting the rook, so.
I see. So knight d4 doesn't win.
It doesn't do very much. You could go knight b3 here, maybe, and trade the knights. And black will have tremendous compensation for the pawn, because once again, this is a very poor piece, and we also had to ruin our own structure in the center to win the pawn on a4. So I think this is very playable for black, but there might be better options.
Right. So in this position, you're looking at A4, C6.
A4 is a move. I'm wondering if something like Queen C6 is a move, although I'm not sure what that does. I don't know if Black is, in a hurry to force White to play Rook FC1, because Rook FC1 is something we might want to do. And there's also C3. I was looking at some rather pointless tactics like this, and this just doesn't work at all, because in this position now we are not in time to recapture and B2. No, Queen C6 is not a move, I think. So
Magnus sinking into this position as he tries to puzzle out A4 and Knight C1. What else could he be thinking of here?
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to look for
Queen
other options.
Queen E6, threatening Knight C2, Knight C1.
Yeah, Magnus went Queen C6, a move I did not mention. But once again, probably he did not want to sacrifice that pawn on A4, so he makes sure that the A6 square is available to his pieces. Wesley goes C3, which is very natural. Knight A6 and Knight D3 here. And once again, it's slightly awkward for Black, because he would like to play Bishop B6 here, but that allows this little tactic of Knight E5, D5, and Queen takes A6.
Nice one.
Which seems quite strong. So Magnus still has to take some time to get his pieces into working order. There's also Knight D7, which is, it has an added benefit of hinting at Bishop G5 later in the game. And
Right, another avenue for the bishop that doesn't interfere with the protection of A6. So doesn't allow that Knight E5 tactic you devised.
And strategically, this is a very interesting position, because if you imagine the dark squares, like if we make some nonsensical moves for a second, like Rook FC1 is a horrible move, Bishop G5, and Bishop takes G5, I would get immediately expelled from my Pioneer's house for this. But just to show you.
How Americans play?
No, what Black is aiming for. Like some position like this, Black is basically just winning, because we're left now with this fantastic knight on C5, which protects everything. The pawn on A4 is now secure for life. There's this horrible square on F4 to which the knight could eventually get rerouted.
Oh wow!
And also the very, very strong pressure along the B file if Black wants it.
This would be absolutely miserable
Yeah,
for
but obviously,
Wesley.
yeah, but obviously I made 3 horrible moves to get there with White. So after Knight D7, even something like F4, I think, is very much on the menu, trying to breathe some life into the situation. If Bishop B6, first of all, we stop Bishop G5. EF4, we might even have E4, E5 in this position if we wanted, which is something we would very much like to do, because the bishop on G2 becomes alive again. And if Black ignores it and plays Bishop B6, we could maybe think about some F5, H4, G5 type play.
And we no longer have your Knight E5 tactic, because there's the bishop takes B6 with check.
Yeah, Knight E5 will no longer work, because we can start with Bishop B3 or we can start with E5, and the Knight on E6 will be untouchable.
Happened on the board, so Magnus obviously believing that he has compensation here.
Yeah, I think he decided that Knight D7 doesn't give him any chances for advantage, and he also decided that he has plenty of compensation if he just gives up this pawn and plays Rook FC8. Magnus found a very, very nice setup there. After Rook D5, he played Rook B7 first, continuing to threaten the pawn on C3, Rook FD1, and a very, very nice touch, just giving up the pawn on E5 and bringing the knight over to E6, doing the positional things first, and then going after the C3 pawn, and even playing G7, G5 to make sure that his structure is very solid. And yeah, I don't think he's even worse anymore. Rook F5 played, Rook C3, E5. If you give White the move to play Bishop D5 here, Black might have some cause to worry, but obviously this can be stopped by any number of things. Rook C5 is sufficient. Rook C4 attacking the pawn on G4 is probably sufficient as well. And this is what he played, Rook C4.
And by the way, the Indian wildcards have drawn their game as well, as it looks like this game is headed to a draw, but a really entertaining and well-played draw, I would say.
Yeah, and also I think potentially extremely important theoretically, because this new idea against the H3, E5, Knight B3 setup might be very, very critical.
Well, this is going to be a draw for sure, no question about it, unless some horrific blunder happens. So again, we're going to see 4 draws, most likely.
Some people's tournaments, and he begins on the right note by denting severely Jan's chances to do anything here. And in the Wesley game, Magnus can just play, I think, rook d5 or rook e4, and then king f7 and start chasing. I think this is just an immediate draw. The line I'm talking about is rook d5, rook e6, king f7, rook f6, and king g7, attacking the pawn on e5. And if you go rook f5, king g6, rook f6, king g7 back. So
no revenge today.
No revenge
for Magnus. He'll have to wait for the Blitz
but
to get some revenge against Wesley.
Well, I have 2 chances.
If Wesley wants to pretend for a while, he can play rook g6 check, which is what he's done. But winning the g5 pawn is never going to win you the game. These types of 2 against 1 are very easily held.
Although, you know, it's still the fact that you force your opponent to defend this position a pawn down, and this is what has occurred. It's a little bit of a statement, Magnus. You still have to defend against me. I had the edge in the chess 960, and okay, this might be a draw, whatever. But you always like to be on the right side of these kind of positions.
Yeah. No, I think it's perfectly correct business practice to continue playing this against the world champion, continue reminding him that you played an interesting new opening idea, I reacted well, I was sort of in control the entire game, and now I can push you a little bit. And he is ahead on the clock, Wesley, so he is even more justified. But yeah, you're just not making any progress here.
Yeah, Magnus does not look the least bit perturbed at this point.
No.
Although, you know, I think that obviously he would have wanted even more from this position. Good thing he didn't play king f5.
Yeah, king f5, rook g5 mate would be one way of losing this position, actually, but yeah, unlikely to happen. Just go rook a1 back and give those checks from behind.
But a surprising one move mate with so few pieces on the board, right?
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. Yeah, rook a1. White will play something like rook b2, rook b7 check, hoping for some king g6, rook e7 shenanigans, but they never actually do anything significant.
So in these rapid tournaments, I often notice that the first couple rounds, the quality of the play seems very high, and that sometimes they get a little bit more tired towards the end.
Yeah, 3 rapid games per day doesn't sound like very much, but sort of at this altitude, against you, every round you play against somebody of tremendous skill, very motivated, very good at the game, and people do get slightly winded by game 3, and you
don't forget it used to be 5-4. I mean, I remember when we did 2 days of rapid.
I remember that was crazy.
That was brutal, and the players said, there was one time the player said, "That's it, we're not doing that again. You guys got to fix the schedule because there's just too many rapid games." And then we had
the game has been drawn.